lives as a hunter and trapper, though he uses some of the white man's tools and weapons. But with new developments like the Dew-Line airlift, these Eskimos are faced with disturbing changes. The site for the new town is close to a good supply of clean, fresh water, leading to an excellent landing beach. But most important of all, the Eskimos, a sea culture people, like it. From here, they can look to the sea.
How do we help the Eskimo consider tomorrow, to feel good about the future? How does he feel about his changing life? Well, let's ask him. Which would you rather be doing, hunting and trapping or working at the base?
I think better to hunt.
Hunting better. Do you get much chance to go out hunting now?
No.
Not very much. How about you, Jacoby? Which would you rather doing?
But hunt.
Like the others, David expressed a preference for the hunting and trapping life. Like the others, he was unable to say why. You and I may see the obvious reasons, but the Eskimos do not yet think as we do. They look with nostalgia to the life of the hunter, the old way. But they feel a subconscious sense of security in the new way. The basic change is in progress.
Polar bear and seal. This part is polar bear, this part is seal. Oh, these are my uncles. They fit just fine. They're so... When I was little, I always seen the hunters go away for hunting. I always imagined what they were doing out there, what it was like to see what they have seen. I'm just happy that I was born here. If I was an American, I would maybe working now and I would be stressed. How can I be stressed? Look at the nature. I don't have to wear a watch when I'm hunting. I'm just me. My dogs just live.
Canh khó trong cái rồi nó mình
I have been living with the hunters for a few years now. I have been learning from my uncle. He's one of the great hunters. I call them the great hunters, the hunters that knows the ice, the weather, hunting all their lives. It's a life I want to live. I'm not raised as a hunter. When I was about 8, we moved to Nuuk. 1999, we moved to Denmark. When I was in Denmark and Nuuk, I had always homesick. My mother, I was in school down south when she was killed. So I couldn't go back to school. I tried, but I couldn't concentrate, so I came back here. I got a job here. I worked for a few years. Then one of my uncles, he was leaving, and he had 2 dogs, and he asked me if I wanted them. I just said yes. I was not thinking so much to become a hunter, but the female began to have small puppies, and before I knew it, I had 7 dogs. So that's where I decided I have to try this before it's too late.
Do not hear, do not hear.
The sound travels longer, and the sled will be making too much noise. So he's gonna go very far, so the seal doesn't wake up. It will be a better chance for him to catch it. We caught it the way that has been passed from hunter to hunter for generations. Every hunter get a share from the seal. It depends on how many hunters are hunting together. They are rules. This is a tradition that has been on for many, many years. We are not killing animals just to kill them, but to eat them, to use their skins. Without animals, we cannot survive. We are not above the nature. We are not above the animals.
the Piquet des Saussures is a huge, vast area that is so rich in all kinds of animals. It is a place where animals and birds go for birthing.
The seals, the beluga, the narwhal, the polar bear, the fish. It's considered one of the most biodiverse areas in the Arctic. The polar bears have the seals eat the fish, so it's all a natural cycle.
We need to protect the environment that we depend on and protect the area that is so vulnerable from the outside world.
He's looking at me, that bugger. The ice that had formed this winter allows this to happen. It's not looking at us as a food source, whereas some years, for example, 4 years ago, I was dragged around by one of these, trying to kill me. We're no higher than the polar bear. The polar bear is on top of the food chain. We're just equivalent. With the sea ice diminishing, the whole food chain is affected right up to the top. We had been doing wildlife management prior to European influence coming to this part of the world. And if the world looked after the environment as most Aboriginal cultures have been doing, then the world would be so much further ahead. The Inuk today, the young Inuk, doesn't fare as well as the old Inuk in the hardy environment that you have to live in.
Sometimes I say that I was born in the wrong era.
Always look around. Always. Yeah. Don't just look down. Always look around.
My parents' generation was the generation who was completely nomadic. But I'm that generation who didn't have that experience.
Wow. This is what happens when you come to this hill. You have access.
We're a byproduct of colonization. When I hear about the way life was before outsiders coming into our homeland, I've been told that whether it's one family or a number of families that have come together, every single member of the camp had roles and responsibilities. Ultimately, they had a purpose. That's such a beautiful way to look at a community. It's really important that we remember, even into today, whether we live in those camps or not, that every single one of us matters. Every single one of us has a purpose. But I'm so disconnected from that reality. And that breaks me inside. This is a dream of mine as a young Inuk. I believe it's a dream of many young Inuit to reclaim what I lost not growing up in my homeland. My earliest memories of being on the land were in my mom's amauti, in my natural environment as an Inuk. I was born in Iqaluit, but we moved to southern Canada when I was very young. And I moved to Ottawa as a fluent, strong Inuktitut speaker. And I can't say that I am that now, because I'm not. And so it's wild that I speak English better than my language, my mother tongue. When I moved back home, that's when I could start filling in that emptiness. Of the 65,000 Inuit in Canada and 165,000 Inuit around the world, Inuit youth are the majority. Over 50% of our population is under the age of 24. We're growing very quickly. And I always say it's because we know how to love. We're not going anywhere. Ultimately, we'll be the ones living here for the next 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, and over 1,000 years, because we've been living here for thousands of years.
We're quite removed from the initial close relationship. And at one point there was no boundary. They had been going back and forth, Canadians going this way, Greenlanders going the other way. This was the relationship between Greenland and Canada.
When they tell stories about the generation before them, how they lived, it's a whole different story.
If you read a lot of the literature of the explorers, they were always kind of marveled by how happy the Inuit were in a world in which we would all just think we're going to die.
People always say, what a terrible place for them to live, so desolate and so out of reach. But I think they loved it. They thrived in that environment. Very self-determined, very knowledgeable, very skilled.
The hunting is similar. Walrus, bearded seal, ring seal, narwhal, beluga, and caribou, and fish. Everything is very similar, meaning that at one point they all came from one peoples. So the relationship is quite close if you really look at that. Today the ice is not forming anymore, separating our bloodlines. Separating the rich culture that we might be sharing.
White men are coming to the Arctic now in ever-increasing numbers, building airstrips, taking mineral wealth from the frozen ground, manning radar and air defense bases, which stretch across the north. Anakudluk's brother works as a carpenter, and his children go to a modern school. Here they learn about the outside world, which the Eskimo knew so little of until only a few years ago. There are few Eskimos in the whole Arctic now who do not have some contact with a white man. They are adopting his dress, speech, and ways rapidly.
There certainly has been a breakdown of our way of life. And the onus is now on us as youth to revitalize that relationship that we have with our culture, language, traditions, and our environment. My dream is for us to reach the same level of self-determination the day before an outsider came into our homeland. We'll radio you. Don't forget the palabra. Oh, look at that. Today, I work at the Bilbik Center to create more access and opportunity for Inuit youth to be able to learn our language and our traditional practices. Inuit youth want to learn more because it helps us understand who we are and where we came from and what strengths our ancestors had, so we too can be strong. We put our elders at such a high level because they are our knowledge keepers, they are our guidance. And I have teachers all around me who continue to teach me about my culture. So I call her my Anganak, and she calls me her Atangak. She carries that namesake pretty strongly. She's one of my teachers, and I learned so much from her. Eating some snow.
Yeah, it's not going to melt there. It's going to have to be there. Well, put it in a minute.
Okay.
Have to open that.
I can just imagine, but never understand what it was like for my grandfather's generation. when people talk about colonization, they're like, oh, that happened hundreds of years ago, you know? But for us in Inuit homeland, colonization happened to my grandparents.
Also to me.
Yes.
My generation is the first generation to be totally taken away from home.
I don't think we can underestimate how profound an impact past policies have been on the Arctic peoples. In the 1950s, for example, the government was very concerned about sovereignty in the Arctic.
Igloolik 1938, Howe Beach 1959, Kanab 1950. The government said, you now live here. They had to live there. So it's not by choice that they started living in these communities.
My family were relocated from northern Quebec to the high Arctic in 1953, a distance of about 2,000 kilometers. The change from northern Quebec to the high Arctic was different and much more harsh. We were told that it was for our own good, but we found that very hard to believe. I remember being treated not as human beings, but as something less than human beings. I remember the lies they told. I get very emotional when I recount the experience.
They had their hair cut. They were told not to speak their own language. They tried to turn them into white people. It just wasn't right.
I was literally taken from the grasp of my mother by a priest and dragged off to residential school for 7 years. The abuses were being done to the students. Physical, mental, and at some times sexual.
In many ways, it was a social experiment that went horribly wrong. And we're living with it now.
With great change comes great opportunity. As that sea ice diminishes, we're seeing great interest in shipping.
Korea has a keen interest in the Arctic sea routes.
The prospects for Arctic business development are getting better.
If a shorter route opens up, we want to know about it.
Shorter shipping times means goods get to market faster. All of this is a benefit to nations that are investing in it. You'll see more Chinese icebreakers, even maybe Chinese submarines in the Arctic. The Russians and the Chinese have one of the most ambitious economic visions for the Arctic. If they want the Arctic to be developed, they will focus their resources and they will develop it.
It's almost like a Kool-Aid.
I can maybe look a little bit clumsy sometimes. It's going to be a problem if I'm going to be a hunter. Because when you're a hunter, you have to be able to stand still, stand quiet. On the sea ice, you have to be very good with your hands. It began with my finger. At first it was only my finger, then my leg. The muscle is retracting off and on all the time. I have tried to go to the doctor to try to find out what it was. They don't know, so I may have to meet a neurological doctor to fully understand what it is. It's going to be a problem if it gets worse. Maybe it will get better. I have to have a purpose in my life. I have to do something in my life. I want you to listen to the cracking sound. I can see the ice is like a wave, moving like a wave. If they become too big, it'll begin to break the ice. Then the ice will just snap. In these last years, to be a hunter has become very hard. The old hunting grounds, like where they used to hunt, we cannot reach them anymore. They are just history now. I think there will still be ice while I'm alive, but everything is changing.
The Inuit from Greenland and Canada are so much dependent upon the animals that come from the Bikealasokswell area. The cost of living and cost of food in the north is so high, so the people in the communities perpetually have to supplement their meals each day from what they hunt.
$12 for a carton of orange juice. This is everyday life in Nunavut. A Conference Board of Canada report says more than a quarter of the people living in the territory don't have affordable access to food, let alone nutritious food. But food security experts say the situation is actually much worse, affecting almost half of Nunavut's population.
This is the Nunavut Country Food Store here in Iqaluit. It's really important to me because this is where I can buy locally harvested country food that we Inuit prefer to eat over store-bought food that is shipped up by plane from the south. I wish there were more options like this in our local stores because we have such amazing food that we can harvest, and I know that many people want to be full-time hunters and fishermen. Today I'm looking for some iqaluk Arctic char. It's my favorite thing to eat. I've been told that because of the warming Arctic, that our char, which is usually this red, is now becoming this color because of what they're eating instead. More of those small white fish. Yeah. That's how it's supposed to be. Look at.
They look a lot healthier, right?
Yeah.
If we do nothing as we've done in the past and just sort of let things happen, we're going to lose some species, there's no question about it. We're going to see migration patterns alter fairly dramatically. It's going to be a very, very different place. It's going to be unrecognizable.
Older hunters, some of them tells me the animals are polluted. In their fat, they can see some rust. It isn't supposed to be there. It's kind of disturbing. Sometimes I don't want to eat the meat, but I have to eat it. and our dogs have to eat it also. That's how we live. We eat what we hunt. Before I became a hunter, I worked as a manager in the bar. A few months ago, the owner asked me if I could help out, so I did. I cannot say what I'm going to be doing in 10 years from now. Our culture has changed so fast. It might be one of the reasons that we get lost in our life here now. We get confused. I have some friends that that has committed suicide here. For me, it's 3 or 4. For me, yeah, that was very close to me. I don't know if it's going to become better, but everything changed in this life, so.
Once called the Creator's unfinished world, the Arctic is just now emerging into the 20th century. The oilmen and the miners have found little here but a promise and a challenge. There have been few big strikes, but like the men who came before them, like Frobisher, Hudson, Franklin, and Peary, they have helped to open up this land. The prize they seek is great. The price we pay may be greater still.
In the past, we could do pretty much whatever we wanted in the Arctic. Some companies were getting $1.10 back for every dollar they invested, and they just went wild. You know, they laid waste to good parts of the Arctic. The rest of the world has suddenly realized that this is the last frontier we can exploit for a variety of purposes. Quarter of all of the unexploited oil and gas reserves in the world are located in the Arctic. The rest of the world really, really needs those resources, and they're untapped.
There'll be new non-Arctic actors from Saudi Arabia and even potentially India looking for those energy resources. We are seeing increased in military operations in the Arctic, more port infrastructure, more mining, and so states are quickly working to try to figure out the best approach.
Future economies are staking themselves on what happens in the Arctic. So $1 million question is this going to be the Wild West and we're just going to let everybody do whatever they want?
What happens on the land affects what happens in the sea. What happens in the sea affects what happens on the land. It's all very intricately interconnected. In a sense, we were just trying to gain back what we had lost. The continuation of life in the Arctic ices has always been known. And how it should be.